Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I have a beautiful friend of mine with us today, Patsy Balacchi. She specializes in high vibrational living, combining her aesthetic with nature-oriented design into greater natural frequencies and vitality to harmonize spaces. She's led talks, workshops, and retreats both in English and Spanish across the US and in her homeland in El Salvador. And she just is so much more than that. She is she has this beautiful way of harmonizing everything she touches. So she can work with your branding, or she can work with your corporate messaging, or she can work with your office space or your home design, and really bring all the elements together to create just harmony and light. So welcome, Patsy. Thank you for joining us
Such
today.
a pleasure to be here with you, Wendy. Such a pleasure. Thank you.
I've known you for years, and we have both changed so much on our personal journeys, right?
Mhm.
And I know you've had some very powerful and pivotal events in your life that kind of triggered uh, this path, I would say, that you've been on, and this seeking of higher wisdom and knowledge and consciousness. And I was wondering if you could give us a little background, or maybe tell us what the catalyst was for you to actually kind of really begin intentionally on this path back to your soul.
Yes. Wow. It feels like it was eons ago to go back into that timeline. I I would say, we have this conversation before, I had a very difficult pregnancy, my very first pregnancy. I had developed something called cholestasis of pregnancy or toxemia, which basically my body is not able to release toxins, and so they get stuck in the blood. I was very young. I had my first son when I was 19, and it was a very, very, very difficult timeline. My young brother, he was basically going through liver cancer, and he was only 1 year old. So you could imagine my mom, how she was very much focused on that. And of course, the whole
Of
family.
course.
I
Yeah.
couldn't say that I felt abandoned or I felt left out. I was completely engaged with this traumatic event. Luckily, right after years, his cancer came back. It was, he had to get 3/4 of his liver out. And of course, he's a baby, right?
Wow.
And at this time, I'm pregnant. So you could imagine so much of that sorrow and everything else taking in. And basically, being young, I really didn't take care of myself health-wise,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I didn't know what was happening to me. I was very tired. I had a lot of headaches. I slept a lot. And from one day to the next, I did not, my, my son was coming. It was a preemie, if anything. Then finds out that I have this toxemia, and actually the delivery was very difficult, and got to the point where the doctor wanted me um, to have a natural birth, but I couldn't dilate. And things got kind of went haywire from there, to the point where I lost a lot of blood. And lo and behold, somehow my mom had signed some papers that it was okay for me to get blood transfusion. Unfortunately, the blood was contaminated with hepatitis C. And I basically spent 2 weeks in the hospital. I didn't get to see my baby for almost a week.
Oh,
I think I was also in a coma. to be honest with you, and we can talk about that. I know I passed somewhere. I had this opportunity to stay or go. I
Mm.
had that question. I had that option or that choice. I can stay and or go, and I chose to stay for my baby. It was a very, very difficult timeline. I
Yeah.
was very depressed. I felt very alone.
Yeah.
My son's father was not around. You know, we were young. And of course, everything else that was happening during that time, my father didn't talk to me. You know, everybody was so sad and angry and
Oh my
everything.
gosh. It was so much. And plus all of the trauma of what you
Yes.
had just been through and the
Yes.
emotions of, you know, just giving birth. We hormonally have so much happening. That must
Yeah.
have been such a difficult and lonely time because
Yes.
you didn't have that whole family rallying around you because they were focused, obviously, on your
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while dealing with that, I did not know I was depressed. It was one of these things that I wasn't eating. I wasn't really getting out of my bedroom.
Mm.
My mom actually thought I was on drugs, but I never left the house, you know? And it's like, okay, somebody bring me something. And she asked me, are you on drugs? I'm like, no, I'm not even doing anything. But one day this is, jumping the timeline. My son was maybe 2 years old, and he was playing with my brother, who thankfully he's now recovered. He's
Mhm.
healthy as much as he can be. And I saw them playing in the backyard so innocently and just giggling and chasing one of the dogs. And I'm in my bedroom peeling lint out of my comforter, just looking at them. That's what I was doing.
Oh my
And all of a
gosh.
sudden, I see this, the window is open and breeze flows through. And I see just kind of like a very subtle ray of sunshine. And I see this lint just kind of looking like an orb floating, with a little bit of light in it. And I just kept staring at that. And I said, and I looked back at the children and I'm like, I'm done with this. And, it took a little while, it took a few days, but I felt different. And I decided to go back to art school and get back into some kind of normalcy with my life. Then this is the stepping stone where I was not very religious, although I believe in God and all of and his and her essences.
Yeah.
But I felt abandoned also, right? Blamed, coming from a Catholic background,
Right.
families blaming and all these other things that I did
Mhm.
something wrong for
Right.
having a child out of wedlock and everything else.
Yeah.
But it got to a point where I'm very curious. And when something comes into that, I jump on it. I like to read a lot. I like to find solutions. And I knew that I couldn't rely because I tried traditional medicine, conventional medicine, did not work for me. So I had started looking for the more holistic path or more of the different ways to find ways to cope with hepatitis C.
Hmm.
And that's how I was led into feng shui for health and Ayurveda and all these other things. And I was just doing this by myself on my own. I was just basically teaching myself and finding intuitively the right person, the right mentor, the right doctor to help me on this journey of finding more harmony within myself. I was really much into fixing and to decluttering and organizing. I've always been a tidy person, but I think it also comes from the point where it, I will have this need to fix things because there was so much imbalance within myself.
Hmm.
And it was until I got to see that the imbalance actually comes from within, and I'm projecting this out into my environment. It was like a big aha moment for me. Everything that I have laid out in my space is a projection of me. And of course, I got to find out how the solar plexus, the third chakra, is connected with the digestive system, is connected with the liver, is connected with fire, the element, and is connected with father. And it was just like, wow, this is just amazing how everything is here. You know, if I'm going to find improvement, I wasn't expecting a full recovery of hepatitis C because the only way to do that is through medicine. The
Mm-hmm.
medicine didn't work for me, but I could definitely make changes within myself to cope with hepatitis C, to cope with my mental health, my emotional health, the people around me. I was a very, very impatient person, short temper, short fused, a lot of attitude. You know what I mean? It was just a part of the coping mechanism,
Sure. Sure.
controlling and everything else. And
Yeah.
I, this was, if we're talking timelines, this was back in the 90s. Okay. So it's been a very interesting journey since then. It got to the point where I was able to bring more harmony into myself. I was able to find the right place for me to really enjoy what I love. So I went back to art school in Miami, and I decided to be doing graphic design and visual arts. And I was scared of the computer at the time. So you can imagine it was a huge jump. And
Mm.
I listened to the counselor about saying, Patsy, you are very talented when it comes to illustrating and painting, but you're a single mom. you know, why don't you look into graphic design? Gonna learn the computer, gonna work on the Mac. But the cool thing about that is that you can put your art and make brochures or make posters out of them, and you will always have a job, and a really good job, because people are looking for this more than a painter or a visual artist.
Right.
And I said, that sounds interesting. And I went ahead with it. So learned a lot in 3 years. It was a beautiful experience. I was so dedicated. I was an older student. I was in my mid 20s by then, and it helped me a lot. I was fully immersed into what I wanted to do there, and it showed. I was having so much fun. I had let go of being the perfectionist. I was just having so much
That
fun.
is amazing.
With
That's
this thing.
amazing to
And
be free like that.
I won woman designer of the year, freshman year. And it was like, how cool is that? I wasn't expecting it, but
Yeah.
other people saw that. And I
Mhm.
think where I'm heading with this conversation now, you see, like my whole being just completely
You're coming
changed.
alive.
It's it's when I let go, when I just let whatever it is coming through, it just is. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just looking for contentment. I'm looking for something that is smiling back at me. And it's like, I am happy with this. And that's what really helped me get into integrating my passions for design, visual arts, and of course, the feng shui aspect of symmetry and balance. That's something that I always carry since I was a kid. Some very connected to nature, I felt the spiritual essence of nature since I was a kid, and I carry that all the time. And I
Mhm.
think entwining these things, it's this I would say talents or everything that I have experienced, then doing something for that. Now I'm coming to this timeline with you, which has been really interesting. I want to talk a little bit about The eradication of Hep C, this happened in 2016. This is 8 years ago. That particular, and I was able to eradicate that with in a 3 month medicine. I would say it wasn't really a trial. It was already a new drug called Harvoni, okay? Um, and I was a really great candidate. This is what the doctor said. I was a great candidate to do a very short timeline with the medication. It was 1 pill a day for 90 days instead of doing 12 months because I had taken care of myself physically with that.
Right. Wow.
My symptoms were not anything like what other patients had experienced. I basically developed something like arthritis. I would pick up a pen and I could not move my hand for 3 days. I
Oh,
was sleeping for days. My body was swollen. My legs were like turtle feet. My ankles, I should say, they were swollen. My feet, I couldn't bend my knees. It was like this calcification of something just stuck there. And of course, I had to come into terms into like, okay, I was with hepatitis C for 26 years and I'm going to eradicate in 3 months. Something has to give, right? The body needs to adjust, the body needs to release. And honestly, that was the easy part. You know what was the difficult part? All the emotions, all that
right.
stuff that I had carried
Right.
due to the hepatitis, why I got hepatitis C in the first place.
Mhm.
All that emotional trauma. I had to process all that. And the whole thing with the physical side effects and everything, I think I took about an 18-month sabbatical to deal with that, to take care of that, to really come to the surface again and heal from, the spirituality of that, because I felt I was so connected, but my emotions were haywired,
Right.
right? And just having to really come to terms about what really happened to me. It was really intense. Now we're in 2024, and I got to tell you, last year, 2023, was a pivotal year, probably even more profound than 2016, going through the Hep C eradication and healing process. It was a topsy-turvy. I basically had a shadow death last year. I needed to go through another phase of regenerative, spiritual evolution or sorts.
Yes.
Something within me was still stuck. Now, it's not about the hepatitis or anything like that. It was me coming into the terms of like, okay, who am I? What am I doing here? I'm a person who enjoys being of service to others. Okay, I will drop anything. I would drop whatever it is to be of service to others, family, clients, all that. But for the past, I would say 40 years, maybe more, I have been wanting to do something very personal for myself. I have been wanting to project and create something purely for my own enjoyment, which is writing these little stories about my experiences with nature when I was a kid, because it was magical.
Yeah.
It was my happy center. It was my refuge. It was, my childhood was great, beautiful when it came to being with grandparents, when it came to having friends, my school days. Home life was disparate. My parents were going, always fighting, a lot of discordance, a lot of disharmony, you name it, alcoholism, you name it. And it was very, very tough, very sad. So my refuge was nature, and I was very happy there. I had a lot of space to do that. The house provided this beautiful space to be surrounded by fruit trees and all these wonderful things, in El Salvador. So I had that freedom, but I was very alone. My sister and I are like 4 years apart. I was very happy teaching. That was one of my playthings. And I wanted to teach my friends to be a teacher, whatever it was, making concoctions with fruit juices and spices and all these other things. And I would have them try it before I tried it. Yes. And at the same time, I was very happy just being by myself. And it's these glimpses of memories that every now and then they come back through dreams. They come back through when I touch a flower, when I'm digging the dirt, when I'm
Mhm.
planting my
Mhm.
flower garden. There's this sense of electricity that comes through that. And every now and then, if I'm inside the house, I get these whiffs of pine or fresh roses, or like somehow there's something moving there. And to me, I always wanted to put that in writing, whether a prose or a little poem. I call them love letters to earth, and illustrating these things. But I've been struggling to this day of not allowing myself to really bring that into form.
What do you think that resistance has been? I know that you've probably sat with that for quite a while, but
I
is
think
there
because,
something that stands out to you that you feel might be the thing, like the thing that's kind of
yeah,
holding you back?
it's definitely trust. One of my life lessons, spiritual life lessons, is trust. It's
Mm.
like you can stamp it on my forehead and definition. Those two, definition. How does that sound? Okay, trust in, can I do this? Am I good enough? Oh, I'm not, that perfectionist side or the procrastinator, can I trust myself into doing something like this? Because it's a commitment, right? Just
Mhm.
when I commit to an agreement with a client doing a project, it's a commitment. We
Yeah.
sign an agreement.
Hmm.
I have signed an agreement with myself, and it's like, why am I sabotaging myself like that? What is that? And I'm still kind of going through that process. The definition, right? The spiritual lesson of definition is really interesting because I do brand design. I'm a brand designer. And one of my joys is visualizing and conceptualizing the idea for a client's brand and image, harmonizing them with their energy, their identity. And I'm doing something relatable to what I like to do. I'm just not doing it for myself. Like, who am I?
Right.
Right?
I think
That
part of
big,
it
big,
too, I
big
think
question for
part
me.
of it too is we've been programmed and conditioned to look at our work in a certain way, that it needs to look a certain way and generate a return in some way. And it has to be, I mean, there's like a traditional model for creating, marketing, um, and having an outcome,
Mm.
right? And sometimes when we have these things on our heart that are really pulling us on a deep soul level, that doesn't translate to what we've been programmed to believe it things should look like. Because when we're creating from our soul, and this is a inner knowing, an inner mission, an inner drive, that's its own essence. And it is completely different. You don't do it for any of these programmed responses or outcomes. And I think that sometimes it's hard to marry the two because, we're in relationships with our spouses and we're in relationships with our professions and the way we do business. And sometimes they don't marry with what's calling to our soul. Sometimes it's difficult to make that soul calling a priority because these other things get in the way.
Well, it's coming to a point where it's going to come out like a fire dragon.
I have a feeling, yeah.
Honestly, it's just I'm at that tipping point. Like there's no such thing as time. There's not a timeline for that. But I want to emphasize how important this is because especially for a creative like myself and yourself, if I
Mhm.
don't create, I'm dying. I have this physical need to create. It's that simple. My youngest son has this as well. We have otherwise we're cranky and
Mhm.
very upset,
Mhm.
very impatient.
Mhm.
I there's this thing that I need to create that.
Yeah.
It feels so nice when I allow that space to play. So I'm
Mhm.
switching that. I'm switching this thing. Like I'm putting myself, this self of mine right now, thinking of this younger self of mine. How can I bring that into this? Because there's a lot of that. And I think it's called honoring all parts of me, the soul, right? It's just coming through. And what it's really interesting about this, about just conversing with you and bringing this to light, is that when I was a kid, I didn't feel like a kid. I felt very much, I would say, different. There are no words to explain this. When I was 9 years old, I remember I was sitting down in front of my avocado tree. We had some stairs that went down, and I was pretty much at eye level to the trunk of the tree. Beautiful green. It was actually a very cloudy day, and it was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm just sitting there like this. And I said, I am 9 years old now. And this whole projection, it was like if you're looking into a movie, I had this glimpse of everything that was coming, that everything that I was going to experience like that. And it was going to be very difficult, but I was there. I was the protagonist. And I said, yes, I will never forget that.
Wow. That is so powerful.
And it's bringing me to tears because when I met we left El Salvador, we were very fortunate that we had our residency cards within, I think, a 3 month period. My grandmother was already living in Connecticut. It was very easy that part. Some people have to wait months, especially during the Civil War.
Mhm.
So we were lucky to leave, but I knew it was going to be a very, very difficult experience. But I chose it. And I
Right.
knew that I was choosing the better part, whatever it is that I needed to learn. Same thing happened the first time I met my oldest son's father, his biological father. I saw him come in where we were working at Roy Rogers. He opened the door and I'm a cashier and I had to put my hands on the counter. I took a deep breath And I knew there was going to be something very important with him. I was 16 years old at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Coming through all of this, just these challenges, what do you think now that you have become more whole and complete within your soul? Looking back at that, what can you say? What was the lesson?
I would say it was really not the lesson, but it's the experience. If I didn't, I had a choice to stay in El Salvador,
Mhm.
and I chose to go with my mom. I had a choice not to work at that place.
Mm.
And it was just that experience. And to be honest with you, the greatest joy for me are my sons. And both of them were very difficult pregnancies. Okay, I had my second one while the Hep C was at a dormant state. And to me, this is probably the reason why. And it's made me even realize how nurturing I am. Perhaps not the best mother, right? Not perfect, but I have a very nurturing way of being. I'm connecting to this feminine aspect of myself to be more compassionate, to listen more, to hug, right? I didn't know how to hug until I was hugging my children, especially my first one. Didn't know how to hug.
Mm.
And it was really humbling. And I'm telling you, like 2023 was a pivotal year. I was already on this trajectory of hearing my call. It's like, Patsy, this is your time. When is it your time
Mhm.
to be you, to practice you? There were so many things that I was holding on to because I needed to help someone else, family, friends, clients, everything. And I'm doing a disservice to myself because there's something very special that I feel that I want to do, even if it's just for myself.
Yeah,
It's my little gift to myself.
right. It takes practice too, because our organic response to our lives is service to others. It has to be such an intentional practice, I know, for myself to choose myself.
And
And
guess what?
in order to choose myself, I had to own and claim myself. And to own and claim myself, I had to find the worthiness within myself.
I'm so
And
glad you mentioned this. I'm
it
so
took
glad.
years, years of serving at my expense, decades of service at my expense, to finally, find the core essence of who I am and hold it so firmly within my being that no one could pull me off. No one could pull me out of my alignment with my core essence of who I am. And it was very difficult for the people around me, because once you start to heal and change and have boundaries, and once you start to see your worthiness, the way you relate to people in your life changes. You have boundaries. You refuse to submit.
Hmm.
You have integrity within yourself that won't allow you to sacrifice anymore, because you know you're worthy of what you're asking for, of who you're becoming, of what you're here to offer the world. And when you own and claim that, no one can touch you. No
Hmm.
one can harm you, because you're so embodied and anchored within your being that you can rise above it, and you just allow everyone to have the feelings they feel, everyone to project their wounds on you. That's not about you. You have this understanding that you've transcended the need to please people because you are worthy of living your life on your terms, in your mission on this planet. It's already been written. And nobody can take that from you, nor should you sacrifice yourself for 1, 2, 3 people who don't believe in you. Ever, ever. I will never step out of alignment with my purpose here and my integrity and knowing who I am to bow to someone else. I will never bow or submit to another ever in my life going forward.
Very profound. And this is really, I'm grateful that you say this because we need to hear it. It's just reminders of that, getting back into that sense of worthiness. That to me was huge also, right? Worthy of attention from parents, worthy of attention from your loved one, from your partner, from your spouse. You know, I've been through all that, and it's totally understand. It's like, okay, I'm worthy of my own attention because nobody else is going to give it to me. My responsibility is my own happiness, however that projects. And it's interesting that I look for peace and quiet more and more. I was a total extrovert at one point. I don't think I'm an introvert, definitely an ambivert. I am very happy with people, but then there's this time that it's just so sacred for me to be by myself. This is the time where I get to really hear my thoughts and write and draw and doodle and all these things. It's a physical need, it's a spiritual need. And I'm very thankful for my husband that he's understanding that I'm going through so much. Last year, besides all the release of all the shedding of everything that I was going through, just having a whole life reset.
Yes.
Point where in October, I had a really traumatic car accident. Luckily, both the driver who hit me and myself are okay. But it was a huge trauma and shock for me. I was so angry at myself because I knew I shouldn't have gone out. I was vacillating. And within a 3-hour period of me leaving the house, going to a housewarming party, was like an hour and a half and 30 minutes to come back. The accident, 10 minutes away from my house. And it was, so I had to process all this, right? Like the anger of myself for not listening to myself. That was probably the biggest lesson on that. The experience, though, has been really interesting because it gave all this traumatic, difficult, challenging, somber negativity to just come out like a dragon and release it through that shocking experience of the accident. Boom. It had to happen.
It's like an energetic release, right?
Was
I think
no accident.
sometimes,
It was the no accident. It had to happen.
right.
And what was also really angry was because when I asked Dante, my son, it's like, do you want to go to this? It's, our friend and a little house. Was like, no, I'm staying home. Like, it was so easy for him. And I just had that, I'm like, and that was the second time I had
Oh.
asked that question,
Mm,
and I still went, of course, because I like my friend and it was her new home, and
sure.
not to please. I said, this is something nice to do, to be with
Right.
people. And it was like, there you go. And it
Mm,
happened the way it had to happen. Still dealing with some things, but I feel that that whole 2023 was definitely pivotal to get me where we are right now. 2024, breaking ground, right? That wood dragon is breaking earth. And I
mhm.
feel that within me that there's something definitely shifting, going through the process of understanding. I don't want, it's like not making sense of things, but really just connecting that, the spiritual aspect of myself. How much have I grown? How much have understood, allowing, allowing the guidance to come through, connecting with my higher self. You know, all the spiritual work that we do, everything that we do now, all the human evolution work that we're doing, soul work. I couldn't have done it without wonderful people like you,
Thank you.
mentors, guy, you know, it's like I have my lifeline. And I am so grateful that I give myself that permission, because there could be times where I could have just closed the door like I did once before and shut down. It's no time for shutting down. I know I am worthy of sharing life and light,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
as I'm
Thank you.
here.
Thank you for that beautiful insight. I think sometimes when we are right at the door of our greatness, when we are literally right at the door, it is the most challenging time. It's like you're almost to the top of the mountain and you're exhausted and your body's telling you to quit and you're hot and you're suffering and you think, I could just go back. I can just turn around and go back. I don't need to go any further.
Mm.
It's so easy to talk ourselves out of our greatness. It's so easy to tap out when we are at the the moment, the very moment we're about to walk through that door and step into our power and greatness. And we have to remember when we're at that moment that we need to just stay with it.
Mhm.
We just need to feel it a little bit longer. We just need to hold on a little bit longer because you're meant for more. And this initiation is taking you there. And through this initiation, you find out what you're made of. You find out how resilient you are. You find out how strong you are. Your character is tested to the max,
Mm.
to the point where you're getting pushback and resistance from everything and everyone around you, and you're still choosing you. And I've been there. I've been at that threshold. I've been at that threshold. And with this deep, resonant knowing that I'm going all the way. And if I have to do it alone, I will. I will do it alone because what I'm bringing to the table here in terms of service, light, energetic alchemy, healing is something only I can offer because of the frequency I hold. And that's true for every single person. The frequency they're holding and the inner innate gifts they came into this life with are specific to them. So what they can offer is very unique to them. Nobody can offer the same thing because the energetic signature is not the same. We are all energetically different.
Unique.
And so if you're out there listening to our conversation today and you feel like you can't go on and you're ready to just call it, quit, go back, go backwards, give up,
Drop the ball.
this is your moment.
Throw the
This
white
is your
flag.
moment to dig deep, dig deeper. You have the inner strength. You have this, but it's a choice.
It's a choice.
It's a choice to walk through that door. And sometimes it is baptism by fire. You're getting burned, but you know what? You're burning all that shit off. You're getting alchemized by that fire. You're not getting burned by it. It's alchemy. You're getting reborn by that baptism by fire experience. You're getting reborn into the purest essence of who you are. Don't give up. Don't give up when you're right at the threshold of your greatness, you know? You've just got to stay with it, right?
I would definitely add to say to synchronize with the frequencies of what we're dealing with planetarily, with the
Yes.
earth, the frequency of the earth, the frequency of the elements. Go with that energetic frequency. Go with it. Don't go back. Don't fight the force or the current. Go with the wave. And it's interesting because I feel that there are many people out there going through something very similar of this notion of breaking ground. We have an open opportunity, a window of opportunity from the universe right now to go and harness the energy of wood dragon. And this is, your ally. This is the force that we're vibing to on Earth. And what is it going to do? It's breaking the Earth, literally.
Oh,
Breaking
yeah.
ground, breakthroughs. You're going to see this a lot. There may not be monumental and, showing out there. For me, they're showing up inside.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would also like to contribute with that is listen with your heart and trust your gut to know that you are choosing the right path, yourself, yourself always. It's really interesting when it comes to this self-realization of like, there's such an inner peace that happens when you come to this point where it's like, oh, wow, I did this. I when you came to visit, just getting out all my art supplies, organizing the area where we're going to do our play day together, it just really filled me up with so much joy. And I was deeply grateful and also had this sense of like, wow, I'm giving myself permission to play again.
Yes.
They've been in the closet for months and months.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a way of just getting out there and doing something. It was really a huge step for me. Huge.
I'm so glad we did it. Patsy and I had an art day where we just spent the day
On Earth
hanging
Day.
out. Yes, it was on Earth Day, and she had this beautiful spread of art supplies on her dining room table, and we had yummy food, and we had soul to soul conversation, and gosh, it just filled my bank to the max with love and connection and heart. And there's something about having a friend that you can be so authentically yourself with and be seen by and encouraged and nurtured. And we were able to do that for each other all day. And it was such a gift. And thank you, Patsy, for giving me that opportunity as well to come and play with you, because I also rarely make time to do something like that. We'll have to do it more often, I think.
Well, I'm grateful for your friendship too. You show me through this timeline of our friendship, how you had this giving this gentle nuggets of wisdom, of showing me what I wasn't trying to show me, what I wasn't seeing for myself. And those difficult truths to acknowledge. Um, Seeing all that was really, really interesting, because there are times where we choose not to see because it hurts,
Of
because you know
course,
better.
it's
Because,
painful sometimes to see the
yeah,
truth. Even when
and
you know it's true inside, you don't want to acknowledge it, or maybe it requires making different choices than you're making, and those are difficult because it involves other people, or maybe not meeting expectations of other people, or it's just so complex, right? It's so hard. But I think when we're friends, sometimes you have to speak truth, even if it's not going to be received well. I think we owe it to our friends not to just say, yeah, 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 great, great, do that, do that. I think it's important for all of us to have integrity in our friendships and say what's on our heart, even if it's a difficult thing sometimes. But I'm just so glad you're still here, because I've lost many friends, through the process, who just didn't want to hear what I said, or they felt judged by what I said, which wasn't the intention at all. It's all I always speak from my heart. It's never to harm someone or hurt someone, or
yeah,
but sometimes people just aren't ready.
that's it. That's it. That's exactly it.
They're just not ready to hear the truth or do something about it. So it's easier to turn away for a while.
Yes.
But we're still standing. I think we'll be friends forever. So I'm grateful to have you here. Do you have any words of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience before we say
Yes.
goodbye?
This I've been savoring this phrase or mantra, or however it came. I was connecting with, I would say, maybe my child self, my innocent self, something, while I was doing a little bit of journaling. And I picked up the pen with my left hand, and my righty. And I just sat there, took a breath, and I wrote, "It is in the I am that I reside." That to me was so profound, because everything you need is right in here. You are where you are. Your soul is timeless, infinite source of light and love. You don't need to look any further. The I am resides within. It is the most beautiful way of seeing, the way of love, the way of light. And that's what I'm doing. I'm creating that space for myself to reside in peace, in harmony within, within. And I would say, I will leave you with those words. And if you like to practice them, please do. It is in the I am that I reside. It is in the I am that I reside. And I with all my heart for you. I share those with you.
You're making me emotional. Energetically, I'm feeling it. Thank you
It's
for
so
sharing
strong.
that.
Yes.
Thank you for being here, Patsy. It's been a wonderful conversation, as I knew it would be. And I'm looking forward to many more conversations like this in the future. And to my audience, you beautiful people, thank you for being with me every week or 2 weeks when I put out a show. Please nurture and love yourselves through this challenging time. And get on my website, alinealifecoaching.com, to sign up for my newsletter. I do send out a monthly newsletter and have a blog, and would love to connect to you in other ways. So have a beautiful day, you all. Love yourselves. We'll see you later. Bye.